lucid dreaming, perception of reality, and spiritual awakening. So first of all, we got to put a little bit of a disclaimer, because look, physically speaking, the general understanding about dreams, and Kabbalah supports this as well, is that this is a physical phenomenon. Dreams are simply the brain's sort of like metabolism. We go through things in our day. We go to work. We have family life. Things happen to us. We feel all kinds of feelings. Then we go to bed. We go to sleep, and it is an essential neurological function of our brain to run these dreams. So there's nothing necessarily spiritual about the content of our dreams. It's an essential function for our brain. Just like we have to go to the bathroom, and we have to our body runs metabolism in the body, our brain does that too, and it has to kind of sort out and figure out and classify all the different data and information that it took in the previous day, and put it in some boxes and organize it. And we experience that as dreams. That's the general scientific understanding. And we all dream, whether we are aware of it or not, remember it or not. It's actually interesting. Some people remember it more, some less. We could get into it a little bit if you're interested, but everyone does it. It's always happening, even if you don't remember your dreams at all. Even if you're one of those people who can't remember anything when they go to sleep and get up and it's like nothing happened, then you are still dreaming as well, but you're just not remembering it. It's a function of our brain. We all have to do it. And the content of our dreams doesn't necessarily contain anything spiritual. And yet, the phenomenon of dreaming, and specifically the phenomenon of lucid dreaming, which we will talk about today, can still give us insight into the nature of how we perceive reality. And that already becomes interesting for us, because everything that we experience in this world is like a branch, Kabbalah calls it, to a spiritual root that exists in the spiritual world. So all of the different processes that nature is showing us through our five senses that happen to our bodies, like how we are born, how we spend 9 months in a womb, and then there is a process of birth, and then our bodies grow and develop, and we go through these maturation stages, from being children to being teenagers to being adults, and we live in a world that has day and night, and at night we go to sleep, and then we have dreams. All of those states are a replica, they are a direct result of the spiritual cycle of life. So everything that we're going through in our corporeal life is a result of spirituality. There is a causal level of reality where the lines of code determines the phenomenon that we see and experience here. That area where the lines of codes are is what we refer to as the spiritual world or the spiritual reality. It's not somewhere over there beyond the clouds in some other kind of universe. No, it's the deeper reality, the deeper foundation of the reality that we know. So by looking into some of the branches, it can give us insight into how we perceive reality. And that's why even dreams can be interesting for us. And specifically, we're going to get into this phenomenon of lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming is really kind of cool. What is a lucid dream? So if you're not familiar with the term, it's actually a situation where, and follow me and think if you ever had such a situation where you're becoming aware that you are dreaming while you are dreaming. So this can go all the way from just being aware. All of a sudden, in the middle of your dream, you're like, hey, I'm dreaming. What's going on here? I'm actually aware of my own dream. So it can go from there all the way to having control over your dream and being the designer of your own dream and basically dreaming what you feel like dreaming, controlling your dream. So all the way from just as if opening your eyes in your dream, becoming aware, to controlling your dreams, which can be fun, probably, right? so, so, all right. So, have you ever had a lucid dream? Do you know what I'm talking about? Let's maybe you can just raise your hands physically so I can actually see if you, and if you haven't, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. You'll see in a moment. But let us know if you've experienced that phenomenon. Okay. Okay. The science says that 55% of the people will experience a lucid dream in their lifetime. So 55% of the people, about half the people in the human population, experience that phenomenon where they feel awake, where they are aware of themselves dreaming. But it just happens a couple of times in life, maybe one time in their lifetime, and that happens to more than half the people, right? But only 23% have that experience frequently. Only 23% of the people have that experience at least once a month. So it happens to people. To some of the people it does, some of the people it doesn't. But those that are frequent lucid dreamers are rare. So when you have a lucid dream, or those who didn't have that experience here, which is pretty much like the statistics, by the way, as I saw, pretty much half. Um, when you have a lucid dream, what would you like to experience in a lucid dream? You don't have to answer, but answer yourselves. It's an interesting thing because, again, the research shows that there's actually a really fun fact that most people the two things that lucid dreamers try to do, they don't always succeed, is flying in their dreams, number one, and having sex. So this just gives us an insight into how similar we are, which is an interesting thing. Even in our dreams, where no one sees and we have full control over our own private experiences, humans are very universal, and they actually want very similar things and are drawn to do similar things in similar situations, even in their dreams. So that's just a fun fact. But let's go to why this is interesting for us from a Kabbalistic perspective, right? That's why we're here. Why this phenomenon of lucid dreaming might give us some insight about the process that we're going through. So check this out. This is a quote um, from one of the Kabbalists. Let's take it in for a second. Let's just read it. We'll read it. We'll read it one time, just kind of straight, and then I'll add some commentary. So it goes like this: We were as dreamers means that as the truth will be revealed, all the matters considered real in this world will be as mere imagination, because this world is called the world of falsehood, where even the truth is not real and actual truth cannot be found in it, except for one who achieves the degree of tasting the fruit of his deeds of the next world within this world. That is, one who attains the world of truth while living in this corporeal world. So we made a hard switch for a second, right? We'll go back to the beginning of the quote. So we talked about this phenomenon of dreaming and specifically lucid dreaming, and we did a hard cut to this very interesting quote from Kabbalist Cohen Sadok of Lublin. Um, and let's start dissecting it bit by bit. So we were as dreamers. He's referring to something in the Kabbalistic sources. This is actually comes from the scriptures. This is we were as dreamers is Psalm 126 or 127, can't remember, one of them, and he gives an interpretation. So Kabbalists, hundreds and hundreds of years ago, said that the people who discover spirituality, they refer to themselves as though they have been awakened from a dream. So look at what he says. We were as dreamers means that as the truth will be revealed, meaning as we discover the world of truth, the world of causes, the spiritual reality, what happens is that all the matters considered real in this world, everything that we thought of as real in our physical experience of the world, of the corporeal world, will be as mere imagination. So this repeats itself. This is an idea that you'll find again and again in the Kabbalistic texts, where they refer to this world as an imaginary world and even as a dream, like we see here. So let's continue. Because this world is called the world of falsehood. So nothing we see in this world is actually the true reality. Where even the truth that we see here, that we see and experience here, even the truth here is not real. And actual truth cannot be found while perceiving only the degree of this world. And let's continue. Except for one who achieves the degree of, let's understand what this means, tasting the fruit of his deeds of the next world within this world. So there's a certain degree where one can live in this world, in this dream world, in this corporeal, imaginary level of reality, while they can taste the fruit. Fruit means results, outcomes, right? While they can taste and experience the result of what they're actually doing in the next world, meaning in the spiritual reality. All that while living and experiencing this imaginary reality. Got confused already? That is, one who attains the world of truth while living in this corporeal world. So look at what they're saying here. This is saying that the Kabbalists are comparing essentially the spiritual awakening, as they describe it, as a discovery that this world is a dream. So you wake up from the dream while you are in the dream. Rings a bell? So that's a very interesting situation. Spirituality doesn't mean that you wake up and this world goes away and it disappears and it was just a dream. You rather discover that you were a dreamer, but you still live in this world as well, while you have awakened in your dream. Does that sink in? You wanna let's let it sink in for a few seconds. So, okay, I see smiling faces. I will take that as a confirmation of mutual understanding. Kevin James is asking, one who attains spirituality through Kabbalah. Well, everything that we talk about here, it describes the attainment of spirituality through the wisdom of Kabbalah, because that's the only thing that the Kabbalists can talk about, how to implement their method. So yes, that's what we're discovering here in their texts. All right, so let's read the quote just one more time, and then we'll move forward. We were as dreamers means that as the truth will be revealed, all the matters considered real in this world will be as mere imagination, because this world is called the world of falsehood, where even the truth is not real, and actual truth cannot be found in it, except for one who achieves the degree of tasting the fruit of his deeds of the next world within this world. That is, one who attains the world of truth while living in this corporeal world. Okay, so Kabbalists describe the process of spiritual awakening much like waking up within your dream. Let's do a hard cut once again to a lucid dreaming experiment. And we're opening some doors here, and we'll close them, and we'll go in them and close them and bring them together in a few minutes. But here's a really cool experiment. There's actually people who are dream researchers. They are funded, they have resources and money to try to manipulate people's dreams and study the results. So it's an interesting situation. And typically what they do is they put people in these situations where they're asleep, and they put all kinds of gadgets on them, and they try to measure all sorts of things. So here's what they did with regards to lucid dreaming. The subjects were first trained to become alert to a certain pattern of sound and light. So before they put them to sleep, they trained them while they were awake. They trained their brains to identify, to be alert and detect a certain kind of sound and a certain kind of pattern of lights. And they did it again and again to train them, so they will be used to it. So they will grow accustomed to a certain pattern of sound and light. Then they let their subjects go to sleep. And as they go to sleep, they put all kinds of gadgets on them that measure the temperature of their skin and their brain waves and other things, that so that the researchers can know when their subjects are going into the state of REM sleep. REM is the acronym for rapid eye movement, and it is typically the stage where people have the most dreams. There's research now showing that we have dreams and different levels of dreams in all kinds of stages of sleep, but REM is still the big one. And so, as the researchers identify through their gadgetry that their subjects are now in REM sleep, what they did is they played the patterns of sounds and lights that the that the subjects were trained for. So in the room, a certain sound would play that they were trained to remember, and a certain pattern of lights was turned on and off according to what they were trained to remember. Check out the results. What happened was that 50% of that group of people, the treatment group, the subjects who went through the training and received those reminders, 50% of them had a lucid dream, meaning they experienced the situation where you wake up in your dream. And only 17% of the control group which didn't have the reminders, experienced a lucid dream. That's interesting. So just to make sure what was the difference between the groups here? The treatment group was the group of people who received training and reminders, right? The control group were people who were trained, they received the same kind of training, but the reminders did not appear while they were sleeping. So the scientific conclusion is very clear. Through training and reminders, you can awaken within your dream. There's a substantial amount of people in the experiment who managed to feel, to experience lucid dreaming, to awaken in their dream, because they were trained and they were then reminded with these patterns while they were asleep. So that's interesting. Now, how does that have to do with what we're doing? that's we're coming to the reason why that was all interesting in my perspective to begin with. Well, here's the thing. Just as the scientists of this world found with lucid dreaming that you need training and reminders to wake up from your dream, Kabbalists, who are scientists of the spiritual world, found a very similar thing. That if you want to awaken from your dream being this corporeal, imaginary world, you have to train yourself, and you have to train yourself, and you have to receive certain reminders while you are in the dream, meaning living in this corporeal world. So just to make it clear, Kabbalists didn't talk about the physical experience of dreaming. They were using dreaming as a metaphor, as an example, as a branch of that can give us an example of the spiritual root. And so what they said is essentially this: training, in our case, in the Kabbalistic sense, refers to being in some neutral environment, just like the kind of environment that we are in here, where you basically consciously training yourself to identify the spiritual world, to find the patterns that that belong to the spiritual world. So we talk about how the spiritual reality is built, that we're all parts of a single soul, a collective soul that we call Adam Arishon, right? And that soul is really the one reality that we are in. And in the true reality, we learn that we are completely interconnected and that we are actually one created being. And there is a governing force of nature that is just one force, even though it appears to us as many different kinds of influences and forces in this world. We train ourselves to see that it's actually one governing force of the whole of nature, the whole of reality, that is pushing us to awaken and discover it. And we do that every time we're in a Kabbalah lesson. We go into the texts that describe the spiritual reality. We work out these concepts between us in workshops. We learn from, we have some guidance that teaches us about how to relate to the spiritual world. And then we go out of the lesson, we go out of the environment, and we delve into the dream world. So everyone has here all kinds of things they have to do in the dream world, right? Like go to work and have family and take care of your kids and do all kinds of things and stand in traffic and put a mask on if you go outside because there's apparently some pandemic that's going wild in the whole world, and you watch the news, and there's all kinds of things that are happening, and there's politicians who are telling us what to do and each other what to do, and there's a lot of conflict in the world, and sometimes good things happen in life and sometimes bad things happen in life. And then your friends remind you that you were trained to see that it's all a dream, that if you put your attention to it, you can awaken in your dream. And then this dream world that we're in suddenly becomes lucid, it becomes transparent. And through the dream, you begin to see that we are not actually separated. And all the conflict that you see around you that's happening in the world, and all the different forces that you think you are going through, all the different influences from your boss at work, or your siblings or your family members or your colleagues, or on the roads, or other things that happen in your health, your finances, your kind of psychological mood that you're in, you start seeing through these reminders and the training that you've received that it's actually just one force. There's one force that governs this whole process. And that becomes possible through this training and reminders while you're in the dream. And so that's a very interesting situation that we're encountering here, because essentially we are learning how to connect the dream reality. We're not completely letting it go. We still have to live in this dream, and the laws. It's a funny thing when you're sleeping, physically dreaming. When you're physically dreaming and you have a dream, if something bad happens to you, you can feel pain in your dream. If something good happens to you, you feel good in your dream, right? Same thing with this physical reality. In the physical reality, all the laws apply. We have to abide by all of the governing laws of this world. And so we can't go through walls. We can't try to fly, because these are not the rules of this dream. We can't change them. But what we can do is begin to wake up through the right training and reminders, and start seeing that it's a dream, and that the true reality is that we are one interconnected, created being. All of us are parts of the same creation, and there's one force that's pushing us to evolve, to discover our connection with it. All right, let's move to questions. I'd love to hear to answer whatever you guys are into asking. So okay, Francesca, go ahead.
Thank you, Joseph. It was great. I loved the lecture. I lost you for about 5 minutes due to the connection. The excerpt that you showed before, I want to deepen a bit from your part. What does this mean? Except for one who achieves the degree of tasting the fruit of his deeds of the next world within this world. That is, one who attains the world of truth while living in this corporeal world. Can you explain the fruit of the deeds in that world into this world?
Right. Great question. Yes. It gives us an opportunity to go back to the text, which is remarkable, I find, as well. So let's read it again. We were as dreamers means that as the truth will be revealed, all the matters considered real in this world will be as mere imagination, because this world is called the world of falsehood, where even the truth is not real, and actual truth cannot be found in it, except for one who achieves the degree of tasting the fruit of his deeds of the next world within this world. Here's how it goes. And you're right, it is the most complicated sentence in the quote, but it's a beautiful one too. Did you guys watch Inception? You know the movie Inception, where it's like there's a dream within a dream within a dream or
Yeah,
something like that.
with DiCaprio.
Yes. So it's a fun movie. It's also um, I remember when I watched it years ago. It also brought up like interesting thoughts for me about the awakening that we're talking about. So here's what the Kabbalist is telling us here. When a person attains spirituality, what they begin to sense is a taste of what they're actually doing. You understand what's happening? We are going through a process of correction. Behind the veil of this world, behind this imaginary experience, what's actually happening is that we have a will to receive that is built from 5 degrees of coarseness. That's how 5 layers of the will to receive. And these 5 layers of our will to receive are gradually becoming adapted to be like the force of bestowal. They gradually, we install the intention of bestowal over these parts of our will to receive. That process is referred to in Kabbalah as the process of correction, of the correction of the will to receive, or the installment of the intention to bestow. But that happens behind the scenes. So all that we're doing is actually correcting our will to receive, becoming similar to that governing force of reality, the quality of bestowal, the desire to bestow, doesn't matter how we call it, the creator. We're becoming gradually similar to that force. And as part of that process, we go through a lot of sub actions, intermediary actions, little actions that contribute to the process of correction. But we don't experience what we're actually doing in the real world in the process of correction. What we feel and experience is this imaginary world. So we do all kinds of things in the spiritual world that have to do with the correction of ourselves. All of humanity is always correcting itself. The process of correction is always going up. This is probably the most optimistic thing that Kabbalists tell us in the whole wisdom of Kabbalah. Doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter what happens, even if it manifests in the worst possible way. It advances humanity towards correction, towards the final correction. It takes us another step further in both our personal um, um, process of correction and our collective global process of correction. The problem is we don't experience what we're actually doing. So, what happens to a person who awakens from their dream is that they achieve the degree of tasting the fruit, as in enjoying the outcomes of their deeds of the next world, meaning the spiritual correction within while they are living in this dream world. So hopefully that helped. Okay, so let's do more questions. Jessica.
If I wake up from this dream, then I'm already in spirituality. I've already entered into spirituality, and I wake up and I realize I'm in a dream. I'm still in the dream, but I'm aware that I'm in a dream. So it's like I'm having a lucid dream. So now am I able, like in a lucid dream where you can sort of decide what your next move will be? Am I able to start in some way making decisions about what move I'll make next, or because I understand what I need to do, and maybe be able to speed myself up, if you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So what does it we kind of have to understand, what does it mean that this world is a dream, right? That's sort of like the basis of what you're asking. So do you did you ever have that situation? And this is for everyone. Did you ever have that situation um, where you turn on the alarm clock before you go to bed? You go to bed, you start dreaming about something, and then the alarm clock goes off, and then the alarm clock goes into your dream. You familiar with that experience? You know what I mean? So it's like, you go to bed, you fall asleep, you start dreaming something, and then there's like something that repeats itself in the dream constantly, and it appears typically as a nightmare, like someone's chasing you. You're being chased by a police car or something like that, and then you wake up and you realize that it was the alarm clock that just kept ringing. And in your dream, you experienced it like something that just repeats itself, and you can't shake off, you can't get away from, like someone's chasing you or something like that. um, and you can even, maybe you even snooze it while dreaming. You hit the snooze button or something like that, and you go back and you dream, and again this thing is chasing you or something like that, until you actually wake up. And you actually wake up, right, and you see that it was the alarm clock that somehow was driving your dream. You know that experience? You guys familiar with that? Yes, raise your hands if you know what I'm talking about. Okay. Okay, good, good. Okay, so we're familiar with the situation. So the alarm clock is only sending you a signal, the same signal, dun, dun, bang, bang, whatever your ringtone is for your alarm clock, right? That's the only thing it's sending. It's sending a signal. You, in your perception, you're dreaming up an entire scenario based on that signal that is being sent to you the whole time. So, in a similar way, what's happening in this reality, in this whole reality, is that the desire to receive, which we are in reality, we are not this body, we are not this physical shape and appearance that we are a piece of desire. That desire is constantly in the real world, in outside of the matrix, outside of the dream, outside of what Kabbalists call the imaginary world. um, there is, you know what, I'm going to try to draw here. Not great at drawing on a computer. I'm better when I try to do it on a piece of paper, but I'm going to give it a shot here. So give me a second. Okay, can you see something? No, you can't see it, right? So, okay. So now, can you see my drawing board now? Yeah? Okay, good. So, all right. So we are this in reality. We are a desire to receive. What's happening is that from in the beginning of reality, so we have descended from the spiritual reality into the corporeal world. We went through 125 degrees of concealment. So right now, it's not just inception, where it's like a dream within a dream within a dream. I think it's 3 levels there. We're talking about 125 levels of being in a dream. So all of humanity has fallen into a dream that is referred to as the material world. And then we begin the process of waking up from the dream. That's essentially what's happening. Now, how does this process happen? All of these are all the dream states that we go through. that we call this world. And then we start waking up from the moment we have a point in the heart. And then there's also degrees of waking up, 125 degrees of that as well. And so what happens is all of the states that we experience, where's the highlighter? All the states that we experience here, they come from the descent that we went through here. So from this descent from spirituality into the dream world, into this world, there is all of that information is now like wrapped up in something that Kabbalists call the reshimo, which is like the spiritual DNA. But what it actually is it captures all of the different states. These lines that I'm trying to draw are like different states, right? So let's imagine that you understand my drawing. But all of these different states are the states that we are going through in the dream world until the point in the heart awakens. And so what's happening to you right now is that you are experiencing a certain state, and that state is sending you, is sending signals. It's sending some sort of signals to your will to receive, just like an alarm clock. It's like now this is a certain signal that is being sent to you. This is what's happening in the real world, okay? This is the actual reality, the spiritual reality. Now let me move this up a second. Yeah. This is what's really, really, really actually happening. You experience that as some sort of situation in life. So you go through your sunny day, and some things are happening in this world, and maybe you see a flower, and maybe some other great things happening, but then maybe it starts getting complicated, and maybe your boss starts yelling at you at work, and maybe things that are unpleasant are happening, but everything that's happening in the real world is just that an alarm clock of a certain state is sending you signals. And that signal is being sent at you again and again and again. And your dream gets more complicated and gets more intricate until you are reminded that this is coming from one force that is trying to wake you up. And that's why, if you don't have training and reminders to constantly help you identify that it's the alarm clock, the spiritual alarm clock that is sending you a signal, you will stay in the dream. And that's also why sometimes we can actually see how, when we regain our intention and when we are reminded of what's actually happening, sometimes what we thought of as a horrible situation in this world suddenly appears as just a beautiful reminder from the Creator that all we have to do is continue our spiritual correction and work on our connection and so on and so forth. And so now it should be clear to you, Jessica, that in the dream world, what we need to do is not to actually solve anything. All we need to do is wake up. That's the only thing we need to focus on. Even all the process that humanity is going through, we're never going to be able to solve the problems on this level of awareness, to solve the division, to solve the conflicts, to solve the growing inequality, to solve all kinds of problems that we're doing with ourselves, with the environment. We only have to wake up. We have to wake up to the reality that we're one, connected, created being. There's a governing force of nature that is gradually awakening us. And the more we create that training and reminders, that environment for ourselves, the sooner we get there. So Daniel, go ahead.
there are some people who dreams and their dream really come to pass in reality. They dream and then it come to pass. So such people, should they wake up from their dream? As the analogy says that we should wake up from our dream, I think it's a symbolic. So in other way, if the person dreams and come to reality, should such person wake up from his dream?
Okay, so you're talking about an experience where we believe that something that we dreamed about, um, happens in reality. Possible, possible. Maybe there maybe it's also a psychological kind of appearance where you think that something you dreamed was actually happening. Maybe something you maybe it really feels like what you dreamed is actually what happened. Still, we are talking about waking up not from the physical dream that you're having in the physical world. This is waking up from the physical world to the physical world. That's something that's going to happen because there's a biological clock to your brain that at some point you have to stop dreaming and you have to wake up. So similarly, we are talking about waking up from this whole physical reality. That's what we're talking about. That too, by the way, has a certain kind of clock, but meaning that we're being pushed to wake up, but the actual conscious choice of waking up is something that we have to do on our own. I hope this helps. Florbella, let's go to you.
Hi, Joseph. I like your speech, your analogy, but my question is that just in the level of the analogy itself, or because you mentioned the experience of dreaming, and the dreaming has different parts of delta wave, or several waves of consciousness. We are in alpha or beta, I believe, and then you have 4 patterns deep down in dreaming. And if you REM or in the deep level of sleep, you reach the delta, which is a very low pattern electromagnetic waves. And there are several scientists, I believe even Einstein, or even writers, who try to have a kind of lucid dream, take a little nap, just to get the right pattern of waves and get inspired by the universal consciousness, where supposedly all the knowledge is and all the inspiration is. Is this it's just an analogy what you were making, or do you believe we have to train ourselves to a kind of auto or self-hypnosis to get to delta and get to a deeper experience in a deep reality, or the reality to meet the universal consciousness? Is that it, or it's just an analogy?
Right. So look, there are very interesting things that are happening on the physical level. There are those brain waves that you mentioned. They actually, in the research, what I showed you with the experiment, is just part of the research. They were, before they tried the training method, they were trying to induce, to produce lucid dreams in subjects by just technology. They were trying to stimulate certain kind of brain waves, and it didn't work, because it appears that there has to be some sort of a conscious participation of that part of the prefrontal cortex during the state of dream, and the training and reminders were what worked. It's funny what you're saying with regards to how sometimes we say, when we have a problem that we don't know how to solve, what do we say? We typically say, let me sleep on it. It's a funny kind of situation. So we naturally recognize that there is a clarifying quality to the action of dreaming. There is something, and it has to do only with the physical reality. The dreams that you're having, they are an act of your brain trying to figure out reality, and to run all kinds of processes that it needs to run in order to work properly. So it makes a lot of sense that when people they have a challenge or something like that, they say, let me sleep on it. And sometimes it helps them when they wake up, consciously or unconsciously, their brain helps them solve the problem. Some people who are artists are familiar with this problem creatively. Some people who are scientists, like you said, are familiar with that scientifically. But still, this is not spiritual progress. This is not the spiritual awakening that we're talking about here. In that respect, it's an analogy. It's a branch in this world. It's more than an analogy. It's a replica of the spiritual process that we need to go through. Meaning, the fact that we sleep and the fact that we dream is rooted in spirituality. I don't want to go technical, very technical now, but there is a process that is described in the study of the 10 Sfirot, which refers to the Malchut, which basically is the part of the created being in the structure of reality, and it goes into a state that is called Dormita, which in Aramaic means sleep. And there's also a state called dream, and so on. All of these states that we are familiar with here in this world, they come from the spiritual reality. What we experience here is an appearance, is a certain kind of superficial, very concealed layer of the actual driving forces. That's why these situations experience where people have certain feelings like, deja vu, or a feeling that they dreamed something that is happening. And all of these are because these different states are connected. There's also, Kabbalistically speaking, there is a very significant part. There's a great importance put on preparation for sleep. And if you do we're not going to get into this now, but if you do the right kind of preparation and train yourself to do it, the time you spend sleeping and dreaming will also be more conducive to your spiritual process. So you can do that, but you shouldn't be looking into the content of your dream for spiritual guidance. Because that's just, again, if you understood the whole structure we've laid out, the dream is an imaginary scenario that we come up with, that our brains come up with based on some signals that we're getting. So, and that's good. That goes for this whole physical reality. So, so yeah, from this perspective, it's an analogy. Let's go to more questions. I see Elena raises her hand.
Can you hear me?
Yes. How are you?
Just a quick one. Is there such a thing as prophetic dreams? In history, we know of people like Nostradamus. And have you researched that? And what can you say about that?
I can tell you this. The dreams that we're having in this world, physically speaking, they don't represent anything beyond our interpretation of experiences that we went through and how we're sorting them out. That's what's happening, physically speaking. It's possible that some people have a certain kind of sensitivity that enables them to kind of predict things that are happening on the physical level. It's possible, but it's still not spiritual. You see what I'm saying? Some people, look, I'll give you an example. There are people even today, but it's more true for people who lived thousands of years ago. Let's say about 15,000 years ago, before the agricultural revolution, people were very, very sensitive. That's what the researchers kind of understand, and also based on some tribes that exist today, they say that people were very, very sensitive to nature. They read indications in a way that today will seem like magic to you. They would be able to to feel the wind, and to look at tracks on the ground that you don't even notice from all kinds of rodents, and say that based on that there is a storm coming or something like that. Is that prediction? Well, it kind of is. It's an approximation based on a deep connection to nature. Bedouin tribes today are still able to identify different natural phenomena before they happen, or to predict them in a certain way. But this implies a greater sensitivity to this level, to the physical level. It doesn't have anything to do with spirituality. The sensitivity that we need to develop towards spirituality is, listen, it's very specific. It's the sensitivity to our connection, that we are bound together by one force that is the same force that governs all of nature. That's what we are trying to develop. That's the kind of sensitivity that you're trying to develop. And the more you develop it, the more you can understand where that force is pushing us and the process that humanity needs to go through. And then you might say things about where we're going that will kind of feel like a prophetic, like a prediction as well. If you listen to some of the conversations that our teacher, Kabbalist Dr. Michael Lightman, is giving, you will see when he talks about the state of the world, he makes many times he approximates what's going to happen in very specific detail, but it's not prophecy in the sense that some angel appears to a person in his dream and tells him what's going to happen. It doesn't work like that. 100 years ago, they couldn't forecast the weather. Today, we have devices that enable us to say where the weather is going. Is this magic or what? No, it's the science of meteorology. And so similarly, when you are a scientist of human evolution, you can forecast where that evolution is going based on the plan that you understand and where you're seeing things right now. So that kind of prediction is possible. It's also possible that some people who are sensitive to the physical nature of the world may have some increased sensitivity between what's happening in their personal life and what their brain is telling them in their dream. But it's not spiritual. Okay? I hope that helps. Oh, we are... Gilad, what do we do? How much can we...
So we have 3 minutes left. So maybe you want to come back next week and continue your session. That's one option.
We could do that.
Okay, so do you want to maybe wrap it up?
There is a beautiful quote from Ramchal. I won't clarify it now. We'll save that for the next session. But let's just read it. I find it beautiful. So Ramchal tells us this: one who achieves knowledge, and it's related to some of the last few questions. One who achieves the knowledge of truth will see three things. So one who achieves the knowledge of truth sees three things: the hidden, true governing plan, the external appearance of the governance, which is not true, where that appearance emerges from, and how it relates to the true governance. So it's much more than what's happening in our corporeal dreams. We're talking about waking up from the actual dream to the actual reality. So we'll continue on that next time.